Hey guys, I wanted to give one final kind of conclusion video, behind the scenes video for any of you who watched all the way through Stellaris. First of all, if you did, thank you so much. That means a lot to me, and I'm glad you guys enjoyed this, and hopefully are as passionate about this game as I have become over the years. And I've got a lot I can talk about, sort of behind the scenes, that I'd love to show in another series, but I don't know when that will happen. By the time you guys are watching this, of course, the new expansion's out. As I speak to you, it's actually been a week or so since I finished playing and did the 20th episode. But yeah, so let's just run through, and I know a lot of you guys are curious about the Tyrian stuff, so I'm going to talk a bit about the mods I had enabled and what was going on. First of all, I had a general AI mod on called Starnet AI. I never made that mod. Basically, it cleans up a lot of the AI's economy and makes them more aggressive and diplomatic. A lot of that stuff never really seemed to matter too much in the end, because we were kind of just boxed in between some Leviathans and Elder Dragon empires, and that was it. And the Choya economy seemed to crash somehow. I'm not sure what happened there. But that was one mod I had. And I actually had 4 other mods on, that I had made myself, and I'd had numerous tweaks to my specific installation as well. So first of all, one of the things I did was I changed the hostility of the galaxy and the number of small space creatures that can spawn. So let me show you that. I'm going to hit up new game here, and we will just, we'll play as the Dredge, for example. We'll talk more about that in a second. But here, if I go to, say, a large galaxy and just generate one here, you'll see when I go to observer mode that there are a lot of spaceborne creatures around the galaxy, both Tianki and amoebas. Because to me, the real Stellaris experience is logging in, finding a couple of those, being curious about them, getting the flavor text that the game throws at you about mysterious creatures in space. And then after that, finally finding another empire. And sadly, that just didn't, it was just through pure luck that never ended up happening in the series. But for example, I basically have lots of little systems that are hives of space amoebas. And so you'll see one here, like it's a single little amoeba that's floating around. Here there's 2, and basically they're all coded to just wander the galaxy. And sometimes they'll come to your home system, they'll like visit you, and your star bases will shoot them down. They're appropriate for the early militaries, basically. So here right at the start, I'm in observer mode, so I can see everything that's going on around the galaxy when normally I wouldn't. But yeah, I've basically got these like hive systems, and several of them will be, begin around various planets, and after a certain amount of time, the AI will tell them to go move. That's just space amoebas, but there's Tiankian things around as well. There's also very rare systems like this one, these special systems. These are amoeba swarm systems, where you can find massive numbers of them all swarming together with a single mother, as you can see here. There's so much cool stuff going on with these fleets, and these guys have all been... I coded this, basically, and told these guys to patrol in certain ways, so you can actually avoid them if you don't go near them. There's a lot of cool stuff to do with these creatures and looking at their biodrives, and this amoeba flagella. Basically, you can get strike craft from them that you can fire your own amoebas around. I never got to show that off in the series in the end. In fact, the most recent Stellaris patch, as far as I am aware, has actually buffed and changed a lot of the strike craft techs and things. So I believe it's possible to have your own star base. So let's take a look, for example, over here, the Elemental Thraldom, as it's now spawned. You can have your own star base post-patch, deploying flagellas of amoeba and stuff. I think you can put strikecraft on here, so loads of small vessels go swarming around. There's so many fun things to do with Stellaris. I wanted to kind of show, but in the end didn't. I love these guys' ship sets. I think they look so good. There's something about brown lithoid set that just looks so awesome too. Anyway, so yeah, that was one little mod. That's not even a formal mod. I basically just implemented that straight into my own system, so I can't publish that. I will be clear, a bit of background information. I did, a few years ago, start on the Tyrian race mod. I even did a stream where I showed myself creating it. So the fact that this Stellaris series ended up with Tyrian creatures probably wasn't a surprise to some of you guys. But back then, I think I'd only made like 8 or 9 of them. And now I think there's 19, 20 different races. We'll have a look at them in a second. And that I do think I will publish. The thing is, the old one that I published online, everything worked on my end, but when people played it, they left feedback saying that the art wasn't showing up in their installation. That for some reason, if they got it off the Steam Workshop, it wasn't working. And I have no idea what that's all about or why that would have been a thing. but it's kind of left me feeling like, well, what's the point in publishing the mod? Because I can't be bothered to, like, troubleshoot this thing so that a handful of people over the years might eventually decide that they want to have the Tyrian races. We'll see. I do consider the Tyrian race pack in a more complete state now, so you never know. Another quick little thing that I had modded, you guys did see, I'm happy that that one kind of worked, was the starter techs race pack, where a lot of the starting technologies for the various empires, I'm only observing here, so I can't actually show you guys. But well, actually I can. Hold on. We can just observe a specific empire. Let's observe, for example, the Massat here. Okay. So these are the Massat. They're doing their thing. They're flying around. And if I have a look at their technology, you'll see what they are researching at the moment is kind of higher tier techs than in my playthrough, because I made everybody go back to starter techs. I do think that there's a possibility for a Stellaris mod that leaves everyone in the home system for a while. Like, you survey your home system again, you build all the construction ship stuff in your home system again, you have to research the first fast and light drive. In the meantime, the mod could have like little amoebas and things attack you, and you've got things to fight as you defend yourself in the meantime. And then finally you get to travel out and travel the distant stars. There was a lot of stuff like that I was playing with and thinking of doing, but I just didn't in the end because I couldn't get the AI to play with it well. Like, I could create a good experience for the player empire, but the AI would have to be under a completely different rule set because I didn't know how to make the AI actually work on those things. Like, the playthrough I did, I think basically no one was building robots because something about the way that I coded the robot tech in the starter text mod that I made broke it, so you weren't seeing many robots. Robots are really important for pop growth. A ton of fun stuff can happen in Stellaris with robots, stuff that hopefully I'll show you in later series, but you know, just wasn't in my playthrough, which is a bit of a shame. By the way, I've paused it here. The fact that the AI here is escorting this science ship with an opening fleet is one of my mods as well. So this is the last one I'll talk about before we get onto the Tyrian things, and that's what I called my first contact mod. So this is actually something I really care about and spent most of my time working on. Basically, in Stellaris, when you meet an alien empire, you're supposed to get a special project that allows you to translate their language. And when you get the special project, the AI gets it as well. And the AI will always choose to do it almost immediately. So in a matter of just a couple of months, they will translate after the first ships interact, and then it's done. You have full diplomacy, the borders appear, everything's enforced. But what's kind of funny about Stellaris is it does actually have an idea of interacting with alien empires before you know how to speak to them, when they are completely alien to you. You know, these immense, epic, distant societies that you have no way of even beginning to understand what they think or feel or how they act. And where do you find that common ground? It shouldn't just take a few months. It should take a long time. And during that time, you don't know, are they friends? Are they foe? And there is this whole idea of this policy in the game, the first contact protocol, of being peaceful or aggressive. Lots of AI in the game will actually decide if it's going to be peaceful or aggressive. The game will choose this, but enemies never attack you. The AI will never do it. So this like tense moment of, is there going to be a first contact conflict, or the idea of a first contact war? Like, these are huge, like, important things in generally a lot of spacefaring sci-fi to me. The idea of, you know, that first moment that you meet some aliens and they immediately invade you or something before you even know what's going on. That's exciting and that's tense. And a lot of like 4X games and grand strategy and space simulation games deal with it. Stellaris doesn't, because of the special project finishing so quickly. Here's the funny thing though, if you actually look at Paradox's code, you can see they had all these ideas for first contact. Like, it's not supposed to be a special project, you're supposed to actually study at the enemy aliens' homeworld, and that was something that I actually re-implemented. That was based on one of Paradox's own ideas, but I re-implemented. And they've got all this UI and stuff, like these question marks and things, before you actually know what the aliens are. There's the idea of that protocol actually meaning something. In multiplayer sessions, which I haven't talked to you guys about enough really, but in multiplayer sessions, that kind of stuff is probably a little bit better, but overall, what I'm trying to tell you is that Paradox actually did build a really cool first contact hostilities thing. They even have a diplomatic modifier in the game. Okay, so like their opinion will be higher or lower based on various things. Do you have border friction? What are your ethics? And so on. They actually have a diplomatic modifier, 2 of them in the game. Paradox themselves coded, which is, did you have a first contact hostility with them? As in, when you first met each other in space, did your science ships, you know, escorted by corvettes, which the AI doesn't even do until I coded them to do it, will they shoot at each other? And if certain numbers of ships get destroyed, which also doesn't happen because disengagement chance on corvettes is so high, blah, blah, blah. But if they end up, which is something else that I had to address, if they shoot each other, you can get this modifier that Paradox coded, but most players never, ever, ever, ever see. Just because communications get translated instantly, and like no one would ever be hostile. You don't, and there's another modifier as well, which is to have had a first contact war. And if you've had a first contact war, that's the idea that you've shot down more than 10 ships or you've invaded a colony. Now that stuff I was all very inspired by. I was like, I want Stellaris to have that. I want when people watch my YouTube series to like get a good sense of the techs. I want to slow down the super early game. I want to give you a good impression of like the amoebas and the Tianki and all that. And I want like a real first contact moment where you don't know who's in the ship. And what's going to be even better is there's going to be the surprising moment where you realize it's a Tyrian Empire in the ship. That's what I wanted my series to be. And I really fell in love with it. But I had to do a lot of my own coding for it. Only for the eventual thing, like 5 hours in, we realized that I'm just sandwiched in next to a genocidal empire anyway that doesn't even do much formal diplomacy. And I had an issue where one of the not real empires, but one of the enclave empires was like between the two of us, and they just shared communications anyway, and the whole thing kind of got skipped out. But I did have coding so that, you know, the any alien empire I meet could have launched an attack on my homeworld, or they might have been peaceful and they might not have, but you don't know. So like they'll visit your home with a fleet and you're just not sure what they're gonna do, so you want to build some defensive ground armies. You know, I showed you hardly any like army gameplay, because again, a lot of stuff about Stellaris now, it kind of, that stuff rolls in later, and it's a bit of a shame, really. So that was my other thing, my first contact mod. That's what I spent a long time working on, and you guys just didn't see much of it. I still have a lot of the code in there, and I still value and cherish all the things I've learned, and hopefully I'll be able to do some other stuff with it in the future. Maybe we'll show some other series, and you guys will really get to see how that feels. I know the maths and the weights and the chance of various things, so it kind of ruins a little bit of the mystique for me, a little, but I've got enough randomness and variance in there that it should be surprising and fun no matter what I do, no matter what a campaign. So yeah, those are a bunch of the mods that I was making and I've been talking about cryptically. Let's talk about the Tyrian stuff as well. So yeah, I basically, let's go back to just full-on observation here. I implemented about 20 Guild Wars 2 races. The AI will happily play as all of them. And appropriately, there's some custom personalities. Some of them are custom personalities, some of them don't have custom personalities. Having a custom personality allows you to change a lot more of the diplomacy. So like the script will speak to us like script. I had to write all that dialogue in, but some of them will just use like generic diplomacy because I didn't do it for all of them. They all have like good name lists and stuff. So if we go to, for example, the Quaggan here, their home world, their home system, these are all named after real places from the Guild Wars 2 franchise, all of them. So if there's a village or a location that's associated with the Quaggan, they have a specific name for their villages that I'm completely forgetting at the moment, which is ridiculous. They will be properly named. Their leaders are all properly named. A lot of the races, the art, some of the races have like multiple different art. Some of them only have like one or two, and some of it's not positioned that well. It's kind of annoying because the actual art, like this guy's raised a little bit much and he should be a bit lower. That's like of such minor consequence and takes so little time, but it's the number one thing that I think you guys will be commenting on and looking at. There's so much more going on here, but you have to really enjoy Stellaris and you have to really pay attention. Like, you can look at each of these corvettes, right? And you can see that they're the Boo class, right? They're the Quaggan Boos, and if we look at their outliner, you'll see that they have special fleet names, and their construction ships are called the Hatchers, right? And their science ships are called the Loos or whatever. The Quaggan's kind of a bad example because I wasn't very creative with this. But there's actually a lot of stuff I was very creative about, and I was actually very, very excited about. Yeah, they all have like special rooms as well. So when you do diplomacy with them, like you don't just see Morgemoth, but you see Morgemoth set on a background that looks like the jungles of where he's from, right? I had to be very careful about like the Elder Dragons and their strength, because I found the AI often would struggle playing this kind of empire. So like I made sure that they were all advanced starts and they were very strong. But they were probably a bit too strong in the end. I think the series probably had too many habitable planets, too much stuff going on. Not enough primitives as well. I've now tweaked that. You can see that this sector here has got tons of primitives, amazingly. That's actually a really high roll there. But lots more primitives. You guys haven't seen any of this yet, so I guess I won't spoil it or whatever for later. But there's a lot of fun things with primitives and how you handle them. So yeah, let's have a look. I'll show you guys. These were the races that I implemented, and they were all there. So the Coden, this was the first one I made. You'll see that there's actually flavor text here as well. The Coden, a race of contemplative creatures, blah, blah, blah. It used to be in older versions of Stellaris that you could read this while in-game, but I don't know, since diplomacy changed, I don't know if that's still possible. Maybe after the big expansion, which is another diplomacy revamp that doesn't touch first contact, by the way, which is why I made the first contact mod. Maybe after that, they will, you'll be able to read this in-game again. But, like, every little thing here, from the flag, the colors, the name of the original leader, the Serenity of Ice here, the classification of world, the name of world, the individual traits associated with the Coden, how they orient themselves in terms of their government and their ethics, right, is all as canon as I can make it and as appropriate as I can make it for, you know, the original material. So I did the code, and I would, if I read all of this, I would genuinely be here for about 2-3 hours justifying everything that I did and why I did what I did. The Choi are really good. They've got a lot of custom diplomacy. But, like, so these guys have got plantoid ships, as you'd expect, and they're plantoid-type creatures. The crate I was very proud of. I did the crate quite early, the unending depths at the ocean world. I really liked this art here. Some of the art really worked in Stellaris. Some of it worked a little bit less. But getting the Oratus or whatever he was into the game really looked good. I think that the Ghosts of Ascalon actually did very well as well. And was pretty cool. The idea of them being from a desert world, I'm not too sure I agree with right now, but hey. The Glint Starholds. We have the Elemental Thraldom here. And because Stellaris, like, will dynamically look at, you know, what ethics and things I give everyone, it will naturally immediately create conflict. Slavers will stick together, right? Like, these guys will like the Stone Summit. If they're near them, they're likely to federate, right? But they won't like people like, you know, the heavily egalitarian Malterius Systems Commune who might prefer to be with others. The only thing that there are a lot of empires I didn't add that I might have wanted to. The main one that you'll notice is missing is there's not a human variant. There's not just humans. But I figured since there's the United Nations of Earth and there's the Commonwealth of Man, I mean, yeah, you could do a Divinity's Reach human or whatever, or an Elonan, and then you could do, like, Canthons, or you could break it down even tighter than that. I've got maybe 20. I reckon you could get somewhere to between 60 to 80 different empires if you wanted. But doing a special name list, and to the extent that I did for every single one of these, it would take a lot of work, like a lot of work. And, you know, this was one series. My job is not making mods. My job is to make videos for you guys. So I had to call it quits at some point. The two variants of Tengu, these were some old ones that I did like last year. And yeah, I quite enjoyed doing these. I actually did a video recently where I messed up the name of Avakar in Angchu. But anyway, yeah, these were quite cool. And I like the idea of like a... one group that was a little bit more leaning into one style of empire building and the other one into another. This thing, Natural Physicists, these guys used to be natural something else as well. I'm not sure why that's not there anymore. By the way, also, I think the Abaddon's Chosen, I think I made these guys on stream. The idea of having Marganites in space always really excited me. I love the Marganites, I really do, and the idea that they were actually being led by Malix. I thought the art here worked really well as well. Often if you could get a pull from the studio's actual concept art, it was better than having to get them in-game. So some of the newer ones I made, I did 2 dwarf variants. This is the Stone Summit at their slaving pens. At this point, I think a lot of the biography information is no longer what I wrote. It was basically what I copy-pasted from Wiki and tweaked a little bit. But, I mean, it works. I was very lazy about this. The Skrit were one of the first ones I did. Did them a long time ago from Skritopolis. The Quaggin here. The Hylek, I always thought that his art looked really well. Maybe I needed to lower it down a little bit, but his art looked really good. The Ogres. You got the Grawl. I thought the Grawl looked perfect as well. The Grawl, this background art is actually unused Utopia art, funnily enough, for anyone who was wondering about that. If you genuinely, when I communicated with the Grawl in that video, you thought, that's some weird art, where's that from? Then congratulations, you're a very, very nerdy person like me. I've been wondering this whole time if anyone caught that. This Grawl art is actually kind of bad. It's really good, but these white bits are because when I was manually cutting these things out of their background in you know, like photo processing software, and it was only later that I realized I could just algorithmically select all white and delete it at once. I was using like much stupider methods at one point, and anyway, so yeah, he's a little bit patchy. You've got the Massat, who I really don't like the art on this one. It's too blurry. I couldn't find a better shot though. Believe it or not, seriously. The closest art that we've had of the Massat in all these years is like bonus mission pack art. It's not great. So you kind of got to get a pull from in-engine in Guild Wars 2, which, I don't know, just didn't really work too well. But hey, the background again is Utopia on that one. But that's a really famous shot that I think most people know. The Forgotten, pretty fun in theory. I like the way their colors worked. Yeah, by the way, the colors I select for their flag have to be very careful in that it looks appropriate, but also it's going to change the way that they themselves look. The Giants, you know, this is interesting. Of all the Empire names, the Giants Philosopher Polity, I never really liked this name. I wrote this on a whim and it didn't really work, I felt like. I didn't know if this was right. But I thought, they're just 1 out of 20. They're just going to be a small cog. And then when the series came, like most of them, I think were all pretty good, right? Like I like the Coders Balanced Space, and I like the Multiriot Systems Commune, and the Holy Grounds, and the System Alliance, and the Scratch Ambitions. It all worked. I liked them all. But this one, I was a little bit like, have I written something that doesn't make sense here? And, but I said to myself, don't worry, you're just fussing. You got to keep going. And then in the series, it was these guys that I spent more time with than any of the others, which is kind of amazing. But yeah, I like the idea that, despite what the art shows, I like the idea that these are the real Jotun. These are the real deal. These are the ones before they fell. The other dwarves here, the Deljamor kinship. Why are they from Sorrow's Furnace instead of Joknar's Forge? Maybe I confused those two. Or was their system Joknar's Forge? Maybe their system is Joknar's Forge. The Seers, like the Marganites, I was really excited to do the Seers. But, and again, I think that's Utopia back there. But these were actually one of the hardest ones to do because we just know so little. Like, writing a name list for these was a nightmare. Like, I had to come up with a name for what would a Seer call a robot army? What would it call that? What would a Seer call a robot army in defense of a planet? What would a Seer call a clone army that's attacking a planet? What would they call that? And you just got so little to work with on this. So I just called them like drifters and stuff like that. But I'm glad to have them. You got the Char here, feeling pretty good. I liked a lot of the art. The Char have a lot of really good art. I didn't implement much of it, but wow, the Char could have been very, very cool. And this was a natural fit. You know, they get a kind of... The Asura, I thought, as sad as this guy looks, he's kind of cool. By the way, yeah, every leader is like a special hero, usually from Guild Wars 1. I kind of feel like this is more of a Guild Wars 1-y, like the leaning thing, the Tyrian race pack, rather than anything else. You've got the Valiants of the Wild Hunt here, who we never actually saw in the playthrough. So when I originally did all this before getting the art, I had the leader of this be the Pale Tree. But then when I was getting the art, I couldn't find any good art of the Pale Tree, but I could find good art of Kaith, so I threw her up. But I never actually changed the leader name, so if you mouse over, it says that this is the avatar is the leader, but it looks like Kaith. So that's a bit lame, and you would think that... It's been interesting actually deving this, because I can see how something I did like a week earlier suddenly looks weird, because the art could be anything. They're completely disconnected, right? But they don't look disconnected once everything comes together. So yeah, I'd need to tweak that if I wanted. But anyway, from a tropical world, it's amazing how many planty species, honestly, I ended up doing. The Norn, I thought they played pretty well in the campaign. They tend to do okay. By the way, I don't think I ever really finished the thought, but it's the Stone Summit Slavers that usually do really well. Really well. And then it's 6 Elder Dragons. You've got Prime Orders here. Each one a different form of hive mind. Ascetic on this one. I think Ascetic's about to change next patch. A ton of stuff's changing, really. Very few of these guys have special origin civics as well because of the new patch. Subspace, Subsumed Will on these guys. So this one was kind of weird. There's a lot of great zombie art too. I tried to put Zaitan himself as the leader, and it looks okay, but it also looks a bit weird with the background. I don't know how clearly you guys could see that. I loved their thing though. Their flag and everything about them was really good. Then you had the brands. And so yeah, pretty much if I had started this series with slightly different sliders, so let's say we want to play as Mordramoth. If I'd had a smaller galaxy, maybe less habitable planets, that was one of the things I messed up pretty much. The habitable world slider I had really high. Because I wanted to show you guys what it meant to make a penal colony or to make a resort world and stuff like that. But in the later episodes, I realized I'd made a huge mistake because conquering all that ground from those Elder Dragons was going to be a nightmare. If I had done it slightly differently, then there wouldn't be many worlds to conquer, and it would mostly just be destroying Elder Dragon star bases, and that wouldn't have been a problem. I could have really played the whole 300-year war out, and it would have been fine. But I also made another mistake. I had the technology and tradition costs slightly higher. And I did that because I wanted to get through my starter techs, but I didn't realize the mistake until later. Well, you know, those back few videos, it was just ding, 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 technologies constantly flooding in, but we were never getting to utilize them at all. And that also I really wasn't happy with. I'd rather do a series with you guys where you get to see the technologies be used as they come in like a meaningful way. So yeah, it was those kinds of things contributed to me realizing I couldn't play all 300 years, not without dedicating several weeks to it, and I was really scared of boring you all, so I decided not to in the end. But yeah, I'm really happy with it anyway. I'm happy with the Tyrian pack as it is. I do think it could be way, way, way bigger, you know? You could have multiple forms of dredge. You could have so many stuff. You could go with even more creative stuff like this. The elemental thralldom. You could do more things just like this with all kinds of currently non-sapient creatures. But you got to draw the line somewhere. If I do another series, what I'd really like to do is show you guys not my own races, but I would show you the actual Stellaris races. The ones that are animated. So these are their preset empires, okay? And in fact, there's going to be 2 more with the new expansion. I think they're adding just 1 by default, and then they're going to add 2 with the new thing, maybe? I'm not sure. But anyway, there's a lot of them, and I could force spawn all of these on. You guys could get to know them. I'd love to play each as well. There's so many cool things you guys haven't seen in the game. It's unbelievable. But yeah, a little bit of behind the scenes. Those were the mods I made. That was how I tweaked it. I really felt compelled to do this video today because I just uploaded part 2, and I've got some guy in my comments giving me all this like ridiculous advice about building fleets and like telling me I'm playing the game wrong, and it's like he hasn't got a clue what he's talking about because he has no idea what I've done with First Contact. He has no idea how Starnet is played. He's got no idea about the Devouring Swarms or how like actually vulnerable I was. So, yeah, the backseating, I don't know how it will go as it goes along, but hopefully it will be clear to you guys that, yeah, I did actually change the game quite a lot to do this. That was pretty fun. But there you go. That's it. Hope you guys got a little bit of a kick out of this behind the scenes. And thank you again for watching, really. It really, really, really means a lot. And we'll see how the rest of the year goes. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.